first thing I want to say is I'm so honored, just so honored to see that people are here to hear this. And I hope to give a really informative, wonderful session today. I guess most of you here today do know what ITC and EVP are. ITC, instrumental trance communication, is how we use instruments to communicate with beings on the other side. And we've been doing this for a while now. Craig has been doing it much longer than I was. I started in 2016, and I was absolutely thrilled when I got the first EVPs. I was in a state of complete amazement, nearly jumped out of my pants the first one I heard. Then we started getting some in my son's very own voice, which was the first thing that convinced my husband I wasn't getting a little nutty here, because he heard his son's voice, and that was really a takeoff point for me. And but as I hate to admit, but it's true with me, I often jump into things very quickly, get very excited, don't always read all the cautionary literature. Had I been more well informed, I might have known that there is a phenomenon known in this field, that there can be imposters, that there can be people who will get on your line and aren't necessarily the people that you think they are, and can have a good time with you if you're not really discerning as to knowing what a good spirit would say and what a more negative entity would say. And little Miss Naivete over here took everything to be coming from my son or my healer in spirit, Harry Edwards. And I got myself into a pretty mixed up state of mind. And I'm sure Craig and Wendy both remember some emails I sent when I was really shook up and really didn't know where to turn. So I had a lot to learn. And because I've put together a very user-friendly slideshow to teach other people how to configure their computers to be set up to record EVPs, as well as a YouTube video to teach how to use the recording programs and do this. After I went through this scary time, I realized that I needed to come out of the closet about this and let people know the flip side, and also what I have done and how I have learned to ground myself in the light and raise my own vibration so that I can protect myself. So, the first thing I want to say is I don't want to scare people off, because at least in my case, those that were upsetting me were just a bunch of punks, to be honest. And the reason they got as far as they did with me is because I was so frightened. Nor did I understand who I was talking to. Nor did I know that there was any real way to set up a safe space for myself. And so the purpose of tonight's meeting is to share with you first a video I made last week while visiting two women in Santa Fe who helped me when I was in my most troubled time. It was a couple of years ago, and my brother's wife had just passed from cancer, and I was at my brother's house, and I started telling him how scared I was, and he said, "You've got to go spend some time with Linda Burnham, who you will see in the video, because she knows a great deal about psychic attack." I had never heard of the word psychic attack at that point. And she took me to another woman who you'll see in the video, Deborah. And together they helped to clear me of this. And then Linda worked on me for a very long time, teaching me the importance of grounding myself in the light. And there was a point where she would say to me, "You're not going on that line yet. You're going to learn this and learn it well," because, some people will say that's never happened to them. And actually, it didn't happen when I was working with what we usually begin with, which is human vocal gibberish, because I was getting 3 to 5 word EVPs, and it was not going into this. At some point, after a year of working with just the human vocal gibberish, I moved into using a sound source created by Keith Clark, and it's just purely electronic sound. And I didn't know I was clairaudient. When Craig said to me, "You're hearing that clairaudiently," I didn't know what he meant at the time, but it meant that I was actually getting the word in my head first, which was allowing me to hear it in the sound source. And I began to hear 100% of the words. Not only that, if I thought a question, I could hear my questions being augmented in the sound source, and then spirit instantly answered. Once I got this really free interplay between myself and spirit, that's when apparently others began to enjoy getting on the line, but saying that they were my son or Harry Edwards or another person I trusted. That's why they're called imposters. And because you can't see them, and because the voice stayed very much the same, I really was not aware. And so I spent a good deal of time learning to be discerning, to know when something is just I would tell Linda, who you will meet in a minute in the video, that Harry Edwards told me this, that, and the other. And she'd say, Harry Edwards would not say that. The spirit of only good intent would never say that to you. And so I started also studying the works of Emanuel Swedenborg, who in the 1700s spent a great deal of time communicating with spirits, both higher and lower entities. And much of his work taught me also how to be discerning, how to know when something is just not sounding quite right. And I think that as EVP researchers, these are things that we do need to know. And so without any further ado, I will share the screen and play the video I made with Linda and Deborah, which will explain to you a little bit more about what kind of state I was in when I came to Santa Fe and how they worked with me to clear me. Okay, is everybody ready? I'm gonna screen share, that's here. Hi everybody, I'm Sheri Perl, and I am sitting here with two of the most extraordinary healers and wonderful women that I have ever met. And we're here to talk about how these two helped me so very much when I was in great need of their services. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail right now about what made me need their services, because I will take up all the time, and I only have a certain amount of time for them to talk. But I will let you know that as a very new EVP researcher, I had a very quick success in being able to use an electronic sound source to contact spirit and hear 100% of the conversation. What I didn't know was the importance of protection and the light, and how to create a safe pathway to this line. I only learned in retrospect that it wasn't a person-to-person call, but a party line. And that there is, even documented in the field of EVP, imposters who will get on your line, who will impersonate those who you trust. And Miss Naivete over here did trust a group of fairly nasty lower entities who began to tell me things that began to upset and confuse me. And by the time I came to see Linda, who was an old friend of my brother Richard's, I was really in bad shape emotionally, and even physically I was beginning to struggle. And my brother saw the kind of shape I was in, and he said, "You must go to Santa Fe and spend some time with Linda. She knows a great deal about psychic attack," which was something I really didn't know about. And it's changed my life to have these two women in my life. If I can, I'll come out once a year for the rest of my life. But what I'd like to do is, this is Linda Burnham and this is Deborah Doyle. And I'd first like to ask Linda the first question, which is, after Richard contacted you, when did you when did you pick up on what was going on with me? And how did you pick up on that?
Well, a call came in from Richard, and I have known Richard most of my life. He's a dear, 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 dear friend, and I trust him. So when he said there was a problem that his sister was having, I realized there was probably truth to that assessment. I was working in Europe at the time. I was not home. I was at the end of a 3-week trip. I was a little ragged on the edges myself. But what you do when you get a sense that something is wrong with someone, or someone tells you something's wrong, you have to really check it out. You have to go inward and look. So I took a look at Sheri from a distance and literally looked at her field, looked at her whole essential energy system. Now I'm more of a clairsentient person. I have a gestalt of senses that I work with. So there's some clairvoyance, there's some clairaudience, a lot of clairsentience, and ultimately I just know something from the gestalt of all the senses. So I can't tell you how that is or how I know. It's just things come to a place where I know. And so I took a look at Sheri and went, oh, Richard's right. Sheri is in really serious shape right here. And I called him back and said, I'll be coming home in a few days. Let's go ahead and do it. And Richard arranged for Sheri to come to Santa Fe. And so in the world of there is no distance, there is no time, there is no space in the world or the dimension of spiritual intuition. You can see, you can do, you can feel, you can, anything that needs to happen can happen because those constraints of the physical reality don't exist. And so it was easy to take a look at Sheri, easy to see there was a problem. But also, and I'm sure Deborah will say this as well, whenever we get a potential person we're going to help or a potential client, the most important thing is to ask, is this something that I can do? Do I have permission? On a higher level, do I have permission to work with this person? And if you don't get a yes, you don't work with them. I mean, that's bottom line basics. You have to have permission, which means there has to be a higher spiritual contract for you and that person to engage at the level that has to happen to help heal what I call impingement. And I use that word because the word exorcism is a really weird word. It's been overused in the movies and everywhere else, and I don't like to use it. And exorcism, the same thing. It's like, woo, woo, people get nervous and afraid. There's nothing at all to be afraid of when you are helping relieve someone of extra baggage, even if that extra baggage happens to be an entity, and also that happens to be just a thought form. So you ask, you get permission, you get a contract, and if all those things are in line, then you say yes. So bottom line, that's where it started for me. So now let's find out from Deborah, because it's a process that could be pretty similar.
Well, how did you know that you wanted to bring me to Deborah? I mean,
when I took a look at you, it was a very complicated situation. And your investment in the situation was extremely high. You had found something that works for you beautifully. You have special skills in this realm. You were able to help bereaved parents. You were able to help lost and bereaved children. And all of those things really wrung your heart. And you wanted to be able to do it. And the only problem is you didn't have the grounding in the light, the grounding in healing, the grounding in the, let's say, the principles of moving in those worlds. And mostly it's the grounding in the light. So that you were really wide open when all of this happened. And your investment of, oh, I have to do this, I want to do this, plus it gave you a wonderful identity at a time when you needed that. And so it was mostly the intensity of that investment that you had that had to be dealt with first. So that you could loosen enough to take in training about the light, use it, understand it, and be free of the propensity of taking on the negative energy for any reason whatsoever, no matter what it is. And I know Deborah. I work with her husband a great deal, who's divine as well, and I've had sessions with Deborah. I think she's a brilliant practitioner. And as I thought about the totality of the physical experience that I wanted you to have, to release on deep dimensional levels and do it in a very safe place, it was Deborah. And I prayed about it, and it was Deborah that I heard in my head. That's the guidance I got. I was like, Deborah, okay, that's Deborah. You move on with it. And that's Deborah.
So, Deborah, when I got here to you, I was in pretty bad shape, and I got up on this wonderful table of yours, and you proceeded to tell me that you did, in fact, see an entity, I guess, in my astral body. And my first question is, do you see this as a mental mediumship? I mean, you see it in your mind's eye?
Yes, okay, I do. So when Sheri came after Linda had worked on her, I had been told she was going to come in, and I did a meditation for her. I do meditations for everybody who comes into the office. And when I was looking at her, there just seemed like there was a darkness hanging around her body, and it was thick, and it was dense, and it wasn't letting me in. So usually when you look at a person, they're pretty brilliant, their light is bright, they're moving through life, and they're functioning just like you would think they should. And when Sheri came in, she just felt depleted to me, very depleted. So I don't know. Do you want me to tell you about the treatment?
Yeah, well, the thing is, so you saw something that you actually saw a being.
Yes.
And you said that you would remove it if I wanted, of course, which I did very badly. And my eyes were closed, but people will say, well, what did she do? Okay. How did she do that? So, what did you do, and how did you learn to do this extraordinary thing?
Okay, so what I did with Sheri was I started out with a protocol where I'm doing basically their intuitive work. It's using stones on chakras, using tuning forks on meridian pathways. And when I'm working, I ask for her guides to guide me. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just a vehicle. And so what happened is when I was working on Sheri, I saw this dark being. And as we start clearing, because I clear out the chakras as I'm doing this, and this being came out, and it looked to me like a dragon. But it was not a dragon. Didn't have wings or anything like that. So maybe a big lizard or something. And when it finally got to the point where I asked Sheri, do you want this to stay or to be removed? And she said she wanted it removed. And it starts snarling and showing that it's not happy that I discovered it. Because you don't always see these things. You kind of have to get to the level, like I said, through clearings and being open to receiving. And Sheri was open to receiving. So in that way, it was easier to go in and find it. Because if somebody's resistant, it's not going to happen. So we cleared it, and I used bells. They hate bells. I used Palo Santo. They hate smoke. So this is something I learned from like 30 years ago. How did I get into this? My grandmother is a psychic. My great-grandmother had visions. And I was shown when I was 30 that I had vision. And so I've been doing this work for quite a long time, just by being shown things and trusting in the spirit. As far as questioning, if I question anything, I will perhaps pull at the pendulum and ask, is this my ego or is this actually taking place? And after I worked with Sheri and we cleared it, she looked very light and felt happy. And they gave her what it is that she could do to maintain this energy.
Well, you definitely did. One of the things you told me was to raise my vibration. Music would be very powerful for me. And so I have added to my light work, which Linda was very stern about me doing. I play music while I do it, and I dance while I do it, and I bring in both visualization and calling in the 4 archangels with dance and music so that I prepare myself to open the line in a safe way.
Yes.
So did you study with shamans? I mean, did you read, or did you just develop this through your own intuition?
Okay, I didn't study with anybody. What happened is I was a Jin Shindo therapist, and that's doing body-mind therapy with acupressure. And with Jin Shindo, you're supposed to kind of talk to the people, dialogue with them, and get information and help them on their journey. And when I was doing this, I started noticing that I had vision and I saw things. And so
when I started seeing these things, I started trusting more and more in the vision. Just trying to, actually talking about this is it's interesting because I never explained it. I never really explained it. It's just that you go in, you see it, you trust it. It's if you're in meditation and you ask God, source, creator, great mystery, to guide you and show you, and you step out of the way and you ask to be shown what this person needs for their growth. Like Linda was saying, you have to get permission. You can't just go jump into it if they're not ready. And then you're shown this stuff and you're shown what the person needs, and you'll be given information that you would not know about that person so that they know that you're on track with them. And this is not something that you're just pulling out of the air. And then when the energy does come through, it is like you feel like you're being inhabited by Creator, by the divine angels, energy, the divine energy, and you just let it come through. And so, be it cleaning, like I said that before.
Well, it's absolutely amazing, because the difference was I felt infinitely better. Yes. I felt infinitely better. There were no words to explain how much better I felt. And to me, it was an absolute miracle. And then, Linda, you were very strict in saying, you do not open that line. You take some time away from that, and you learn light. To build your light and to be discerning. To not, once now that I've understood about the importance of discernment, I will know if I'm talking to anyone that's in any way unsavory, because I know what a good, kind soul would say. And so, it takes discernment, but with the light work, there's an enormous amount of protection.
As you build and raise your own vibratory field, as you move to higher and higher states of light and love, your whole cellular structure changes. And so you draw to yourself different experiences, different friendships, different people, different situations. And on the inner planes, on the inner dimensions, more and more light-filled beings. And you get so light that dark-filled beings just can't come anywhere near you.
Right.
And it's an important thing to realize that yes, there are lower astral entities. They do exist. Not everyone who passes over goes over with good heart to move on into the light. They really are more attached to what the earth provided them, and they don't really want to leave that. That's one level of impingement can happen. And there are people who do brilliant work just helping people cross over, so they can actually cross over into the light and do it with a level of hopefulness and forward momentum. There are souls that get locked on the earth plane, and you can say it can be benign. Grandma passes and she doesn't want her 3-year-old grandson to not have her and know her, and she wants to protect him. So she attaches to the 3-year-old grandson, and the young kid at 19 is having back problems. Lower backs is a very common area where attachments happen. And you call it benign because the grandmother's not trying to hurt, but rather to protect and love the child. But the fact that the grandmother didn't die and go into the light on her own path and purpose is the problem. It's not that she had a contract from higher spirits saying, okay, you want to be a guardian and a teacher for this young soul? Okay. That's not necessarily what happened in the little incident that I just made up on that. And so, it's always important not to be afraid. There is nothing to be afraid of if someone is not embodied at all, regardless of the level of their consciousness. You work with the light, you work with your own faith in yourself, you trust the guidance you get. Ultimately, you build that muscle strongly throughout your daily life of trusting that inner momentum of thought and grace and action. And it gets stronger and stronger. And then, as Deborah said, you just listen and you do it. For me, you listen and you do it.
And everybody's different.
Yeah,
there's no two people alike.
None. Not who do their work or who are needing support.
Yeah, each person.
Everyone is different. And for me, when I prayed about, can I remove the entity, because it was an entity and a group of entities actually that was working with Sheri on downside, put it that way. And I was told you can clear off a bunch of them. So I did that morning before we came over and set them on their way in the light. But they said that the contract to remove the big dude was yours.
Yeah.
Whatever the contract that Sheri and Deborah had at that moment, it was for them to be in that thing, not for Sheri and I to be in that thing. And I just had to say, okay, fine, I'll get her Deborah.
Yeah, which worked out perfectly.
Perfectly.
Because she cleared all the stuff that would have actually kept this guy buried, or this whatever it was.
So it was really wonderful working in tandem and never talking to each other necessarily about what we were doing, but understanding that we both are ultimately focused on the light, focused on God, and we listen and we act according to that deep inner prompting that we've developed over our lives, actually.
And I want to say that I think we're very fortunate to have light workers of this nature, because it's good to know that if you do get confused or lost, there are those who can help guide you back to the light, because there's a lot of people on this side of the veil of vibrational differences we would not want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those on the other side as well. And so we have to protect ourselves. We wouldn't just go out into a big city in a foreign country in the middle of the night and just walk down a dark alley. We would protect ourselves with common sense. But I was not using common sense. And I have learned that whether you're in physical reality or you're delving into spirit realms, you must protect yourself with light. You must, my friend Vicki calls it the 3 P's: prayer, permission, and protection.
Oh, yes.
And I think that is very important. So thank you guys.
Well, I want to say
very
2
much.
other things, though,
Please.
based on what you said. Protection is important, but it's not the protection of you put up walls to prevent yourself from being hurt.
Yes.
That level of protection is not what either
work.
Deborah are talking about.
It does not
What
work.
we're talking about, protection, is you build your light. You center yourself in your light. You draw light beings around you. You interact with light essences in every aspect of your life that you can. And there are many tools that you can use to augment that and make it strong, which is what Sheri does now. And so it's not like, oh, I'm afraid, protect me. Right. No way. It's, I am light. Period.
Yeah.
And build
Listening to your inner wisdom.
Absolutely.
That is so important. You have to listen to your inner wisdom.
And trust it till that muscle gets so strong that you never question it. You just act. And the other thing I wanted to share is that in the realm of angelic support for all of us, there is a group of angels called Angels of Exorcism. And they literally help in any exorcism that's happening anywhere at any time, or any impingement that's happening. And you can call on Angels of Exorcism all the time. If I'm doing an exorcism, as I did earlier in the morning, that morning, definitely Angels of Exorcism are right there working with me, guiding me if they need to, helping with the process. Because what those angels will do will be loosen the bond, right? So it can be released. But they also will take those being, if it is an impingement by a being, right, who was in a body and is no longer, they'll take that soul. They'll take that soul to the healing temples. They will work with that soul, so that soul will not have to, get involved with being possessing to get their
satisfactions. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the angels help a tremendous amount. And they're angels, if ever you're in a dark area, such as, heavy duty bars, a lot of extraneous spirits there. You can look at those darker areas and we look at them and go, I don't think I want to go in there. And that's one of the reasons you don't, because there's a lot of difficult energy. And those are the places where if you want to, you just call Angels of Exorcism, have them direct them, say, do whatever you can do, whatever can be free, whatever can be cleared, please do it. But if you are ever working in a situation where you feel something's wrong, call them. They will be there immediately. They will help you. They will support you. They'll give you wisdom, and they'll direct you to anybody who can help you.
And isn't it true that they really won't intervene if you don't call them?
Yes.
Angels need to be asked.
Free will.
That's part of our free will.
Exactly.
So ask.
Especially when you're going through a time when you're very fearful or angry or grieving or anything. It opens up channels, and those are the channels where some of these disembodied souls enter.
Opportunistic.
So you just want to make sure that if you're going through a time like that, bring that light back up. And when I say the light, it's from within. It's like a battery. Or if you're feeling low and so, breathe, take some nice deep breaths, and bring in the trust and the faith. And you will be taken care of. You've been taken care of this far.
Absolutely.
And so you'll be always watched over.
Thank you both so much. I'm so
Thank
proud of
you,
this
Sheri.
show.
We love this
And
one.
we'll figure out how to get it played and on YouTube. And I appreciate this I appreciate you guys so much.
We love you, sweetie.
Love you both.
Deborah, come on over here.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, that's quite a video, wouldn't you say? And so from that point on, and this was 2 years ago, I started working with being more observant of the kind of state of mind I was in. I remember once being upset, having an argument with someone, and I had an appointment to do a reading for a woman, and I just kept the appointment and went ahead and did it. And the same woman, Vicky Talbot, who was the person who actually first got me started, said to me, "Oh, Sheri, I would never do a reading if I'm in an upset state of mind. I would have just canceled the appointment." And I said, "Well, if I make an appointment, I keep it." But little did I know that the vibration that you are putting out is very likely, very possibly going to connect up with a similar vibration that will come through. So prior to ever doing this work now, I will involve myself in a form of ritual to bring in the light. I could have just sat and done meditation, but my mind will drift off. And so I decided to make something for myself that would really just involve every part of me and not allow me to drift off into extraneous thoughts. And so before I left Santa Fe, I asked Linda if she would make a video of me doing a short rendition of my light ritual. And with your permission, Wendy, I'll play that now.
Brilliant.
Okay, so here we go. I have to go back to, let me get this one off so it doesn't block me from the ritual, which is right here. Okay, that's great. And I'm going to now go to screen share. Okie dokie. And let me pull this up. Okay, I guess you can see that. And oops, starts here. Okay, here we go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sheri Perl, and I'm making this video to show you, to demonstrate for you the ways that the ritual that I perform prior to opening up my EVP line in order to raise my vibration and bring light into the room so that I feel the protection that comes from light that lifts us all. So the first thing I recommend is treating the room itself. And you can use any form of sage or Palo Santo or frankincense. There are a number of these wonderful herbs that will work to create a safer space. If you do not like smoke or you have a problem with smoke, almost all of these wonderful herbs can be found in liquid form and sprayed. So the first thing I do is I make sure that I have cleansed my space. Then I bring myself into prayer. And I address the four directions, as now I am facing south. And I am calling upon Archangel Michael of the south. And I say, Michael, take my hands, lift me up, and help me to bring the light that is inside my heart and spread it throughout my body. And so I envision lighting a candle inside my heart, igniting the light that is already there. And as I breathe in, I draw light into me as well. And as I exhale, I see this light going out through my body, through my hands to the tip of my fingers. And again, as I breathe in, I draw light and healing into me. And I let it join the light that is already in my heart center. And I send it up to the top of my head and throughout my whole body, right down to my feet and right up around the sides of me to create almost a bubble of light completely around me. And I say thank you to Archangel Michael of the south. And then I turn to the west and I call upon Archangel Gabriel, the element of the water. And I ask Archangel Gabriel to take my hands and lift me up and fill every atom and molecule that makes up my body with light. And again, breathing in that light and exhaling that light so that it goes through to every molecule and every atom. And you see the water of which you are made of, full of light. And then I turn to the north, to Archangel Uriel, of the earth. And I ground myself right down into the earth. And I ask Archangel Uriel to lift me higher into the light and allow that light to go through me, down through me, down through my legs, into the earth, and draw upon the light and energy of the earth. And I bring that light visually through me and out through the top of my head. And finally, I am turning to the east, to Archangel Raphael, the angel that controls the element of air. And I ask that all the air around me be light. Light around me, light above me, light everywhere. And I say to the Archangel of the East, by the power of the divine, which I serve, with all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my might, I encompass myself about in a circle of divine white light and protection, through which only love, only goodness may enter. And so we now join all the angels, east, south, west, and north. And we call them in to stand by us as we asked for this work to be only of the highest and greatest good. And so it is. Amen. Light above me, light around me, light throughout my body. And may this light bring only light to me. And may this work be used for the highest and greatest good. Thank you, archangels. Thank you, Father, Mother, God, universal God of us all. May we all be blessed in this light, and may you be blessed. Amen.
Okay, so there you have it. And I do this in my room. I usually light a candle. I have a building, I live in a building that's a no smoke building, so I use the sprays and I spray the hell out of the room till it smells strongly of the scents of, I often use Palo Santo. And I vary it and I change the music at times. But the point being that I want my whole mind and my whole soul focused on the light and the intention that we are doing this work to bring in the highest and greatest good and the best communications that we can. And I feel much safer and much more joyous about the work now. And I feel that if you're a beginner or you've been doing it for a while, I suggest, if you're not doing this, that you remember to add some form of invoking the light, because again, we're not able to see who we're talking to, and often the voice sounds very much the same. And so you might not always be getting exactly who you want, and the way to protect that those that might want to get in there and mess around with you don't feel attracted or actually feel repelled is to take a moment. It doesn't take long. That entire last video was 5 minutes long, but work with the light, and not just for EVP and ITC. What I'm learning is when you take the time out of your day, be it just 5 minutes, to stop thinking, stop planning, stop worrying, stop remembering, and just focus on the light. You lift your vibrations, you have a better day for it.